JDM legends, some get all the hype, while others stay in the shadows. Today we're counting down the top 8 most underrated JDM cars, the hidden gems that deserve way more love. Let's get into it, and what better way to start than with a car that redefined performance sedans in the 90s, the Mitsubishi Gallant VR4. Picture a car that's the perfect mix of unassuming style and thrilling performance. The Mitsubishi Gallant VR4. This isn't just any sedan. It's a rally-bred powerhouse with a story that will blow you away. Let's dive into what makes this car a true legend. The story of the Gallant VR4 begins in the late 1980s when Mitsubishi had its sights set on rallying glory. The World Rally Championship, or WRC, was the ultimate proving ground, and Mitsubishi needed a road-legal car to qualify under Group A homologation rules. Enter the VR4. At first glance, it might look like just another family car, but under the hood, it's a whole different beast. Let's start with the powertrain. The VR4 was equipped with the legendary 4G63T engine, a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4 that would later become the heart of the iconic Lancer Evolution series. In the Gallant VR4, this engine churned out a respectable 237 horsepower and 224 pound-feet of torque, making it a serious contender in its day. Paired with a 5-speed manual transmission, the VR4 could launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.5 seconds. Not bad for a car that could also haul your groceries. But what really set the Gallant VR4 apart was its drivetrain. Mitsubishi fitted it with a full-time all-wheel drive system, including the innovative Active Yaw Control, or AYC. This technology allowed the car to transfer torque between the rear wheels, improving handling and cornering performance. Essentially, AYC made the VR4 feel glued to the road, even on the tightest of turns or the slipperiest of surfaces. And when you're rallying through muddy trails or snowy passes, that kind of control can make or break your race. Speaking of rallying, the VR4 wasn't just built for the road, it lived for the dirt. Mitsubishi's rally team piloted the Gallant VR4 to impressive results, including a win at the 1989 Thousand Lakes Rally. These successes helped lay the foundation for Mitsubishi's dominance in the WRC during the 1990s, but they also cemented the VR4's legacy as a performance icon. Now, the VR4 wasn't just about raw performance, it also packed a surprising amount of luxury for its time. Think leather seats, automatic climate control, and even a digital dash in some models. This blend of comfort and capability made it a true sleeper, a car that could destroy rally stages by day and cruise comfortably by night. But like all great things, the VR4's time in the spotlight eventually came to an end. Production ran from 1987 to 1992, after which it passed the torch to the Lancer Evolution. While the Evo would go on to become a household name, the VR4 remains a classic among enthusiasts. From a forgotten Mitsubishi powerhouse to a rally-bred Mazda hatch, let's talk about a true underdog, the Mazda 323 GTX. One of the most underrated rally legends you've probably never heard of. Back in the 80s, this compact hatchback was built to take on the World Rally Championship WRC with some serious power, all-wheel drive, and turbocharged performance. But for some reason, it never really gained the same legendary status as the Lancia Delta Integral or the Audi Quattro. So why doesn't the Mazda 323 GTX get the recognition it truly deserves? And is it time to finally give it the credit it's due as one of the most badass JDM performance cars? Let's find out. First, let's talk performance. The Mazda 323 GTX was powered by a 1.6-liter turbocharged inline-4, producing 132 horsepower and 136 pound-feet of torque. While that might not sound like much on paper, remember that this was the late 80s, and the GTX was a compact car. What really set it apart was its all-wheel drive system and its ability to tackle corners and dirt roads with incredible agility. Mazda engineered this car for rallying, and it showed with every turn. But it wasn't just about grip and handling. The 323 GTX was more than just a rally car, it had plenty of street appeal too. Its compact, aggressive design was a huge departure from most hatchbacks of the era. It wasn't flashy, but it looked the part of a car that was ready to hit the dirt and the tarmac with confidence. The Mazda 323 GTX also boasted a 5-speed manual transmission, the perfect tool to connect you to the car's driving experience. And despite its relatively modest power output, the lightweight design, turbocharged power, and all-wheel drive gave it a surprising amount of punch for its size. So why isn't the 323 GTX as famous as other rally-bred cars? Well, there are a few reasons. For starters, Mazda didn't produce a whole lot of them. Around 1,000 units were sold in the US, making it a pretty rare sight on the streets. It was a niche car built for a very specific type of buyer, and it didn't have the global impact that some of its competitors did. Additionally, the 323 GTX was released during a time when front-wheel drive was dominating the compact car market, and many enthusiasts simply overlooked it in favor of bigger-name rally cars like the Audi Quattro or Subaru's Impreza WRX. But here's the kicker. The 323 GTX was way ahead of its time. It offered all-wheel drive, turbo power, and rally pedigree in a compact, affordable package. The fact that it didn't blow up in popularity is a testament to how overlooked it was, and how difficult it is for cars like this to break through to mainstream recognition. So, should you buy a Mazda 323 GTX? If you're looking for an underrated JDM legend that offers a unique blend of rally performance, turbocharged thrills, and driving excitement, the answer is yes. Prices are still relatively affordable compared to other turbocharged performance cars of the era, and as the 323 GTX becomes a rarer sight, its value is only likely to rise. The 323 GTX proved that rally DNA could exist in a compact package, but what about a luxury sedan with serious V8 muscle? Enter the Lexus ISF. Have you ever wanted a luxury sedan that's not just comfortable but can also smoke a muscle car off the line? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving into the Lexus ISF, a car that's part luxury cruiser, part beast on the road, and an underrated gem in the world of performance sedans. So it's 2008. Lexus, known for its reliable and smooth-riding luxury cars, decides it's time to shake things up and challenge the big boys, BMW M3s and Mercedes-AMG C63s. Enter the Lexus ISF, the first of its kind for Lexus's high-performance F division. But this wasn't just a flashy badge slapped onto a standard IS sedan. Oh no, this was something else entirely. Let's start with the heart of the beast. Under the hood, the Lexus ISF packs a 5.0-liter naturally aspirated V8. This engine produces 416 horsepower and 371 pound-feet of torque. Back in its day, that was serious firepower. And here's the crazy part. This thing can launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds. That's quicker than a Scat Pack, and yes, it's a luxury sedan doing that. Think about it. Heated seats, leather upholstery, and you're leaving muscle cars in your rearview mirror. If the ISF's specs have caught your attention, consider subscribing for more car content like this. Now, back to the ISF. It's not just about straight-line speed. This car was built to handle too. Lexus threw in a stiffened suspension, a sport-tuned chassis, and big Brembo brakes to make sure the ISF could carve corners as well as it could dominate drag strips. The ISF's production run lasted from 2008 to 2014, and it's still a head-turner today. The aggressive styling with its quad exhaust tips stacked vertically and a bulging hood to house that monster V8 screams performance. Inside, the ISF offers everything you'd expect from a Lexus. Premium materials, a well-designed cockpit, and tech that, while a little dated now, was cutting edge at the time. It's the kind of car that delivers comfort on long drives, while still unleashing adrenaline when you press the accelerator. Of course, no car is perfect. The ISF's biggest critique back in the day was its 8-speed automatic transmission. While it's quick and smooth in most situations, it can feel a little hesitant when you're pushing the car hard. But let's be real, for most enthusiasts, that's a minor drawback in an otherwise thrilling package. Today, the Lexus ISF is, in my opinion, a sleeper in the used car market. Prices are surprisingly reasonable for what you're getting. A luxury sports sedan with a high-revving V8 and the reliability Lexus is famous for. Plus, with only about 11,000 units ever sold in the US, it's a rare find, which only adds to its appeal. The ISF showed us that Lexus could do performance, but what if you wanted Supra DNA wrapped in a luxury coupe? The SC300 is the answer. One of the most underrated JDM luxury coupes of the 90s. It had style, performance potential, and one of the most legendary engines ever made. But for some reason, it never got the same hype as the Supra, RX-7, or Skyline. So why does the SC300 fly under the radar? And is it time to finally recognize it as one of the best hidden gems of the JDM world? Let's find out. First, let's talk about what makes the SC300 special. Under the hood, you got the legendary 2JZGE, a naturally aspirated version of the engine found in the MK4 Supra. It made 225 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque, which wasn't insane. But here's the thing. This engine was built to last, and with the right mods, it could handle serious power. And if you were lucky enough to get one with the rare 5-speed manual, you basically had a more refined Supra in disguise. But the SC300 wasn't just about performance. It was a Lexus, so it was built with comfort and luxury in mind. The interior was high quality, with leather seats, a driver-focused cockpit, and a smooth, quiet ride that made it feel way more expensive than it actually was. This car was designed for effortless cruising, and it did that better than almost anything else in its class. Now let's talk styling. The SC300 had one of the cleanest, most timeless designs of the 90s. It was sleek, aerodynamic, and had that classic JDM Grand Tourer look. It wasn't trying too hard to be a sports car, but it still had presence. And today, it still turns heads, especially when lowered on the right wheels. So why doesn't the SC300 get the same love as other 90s JDM legends? Well, for starters, it was marketed as a luxury coupe rather than a performance car, so it never had the same street cred as the Supra. It was also heavier, softer, and not as aggressive out of the box. And let's be real, when people hear Lexus, they don't immediately think of high-performance JDM cars. But here's why the SC300 is a sleeper hit. Prices are still relatively low compared to the Supra, even though they share so much DNA. With some modifications, like a turbo kit, suspension upgrades, and a manual swap, you can turn this car into a seriously fast and stylish machine. One of the most controversial JDM legends, the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. One of the most underrated Japanese sports cars of the 90s. It had power, technology, and exotic car looks. But for some reason, it never got the same hype as the Supra, RX-7, or Skyline. So why doesn't the 3000 GT VR4 get the respect it deserves? And is it time to finally recognize it as one of the best JDM performance cars ever made? Let's find out. First, let's talk performance. The 3000 GT VR4 was ahead of its time. Under the hood, you got a 3.0-liter twin-turbo V6, the 6G72 making 320 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque. That was more power than the R32 Skyline GTR and right on par with the MK4 Supra. And unlike most 90s Japanese sports cars, the VR4 had all-wheel drive and four-wheel steering, giving it insane grip and handling. Mitsubishi packed the 3000 GT VR4 with cutting-edge technology. It had active aerodynamics, an adjustable exhaust system, and even an electronically controlled suspension. In the 90s, this was mind-blowing. The VR4 wasn't just fast, it was a supercar killer disguised as a Grand Tourer. But here's the problem. While the Supra, RX-7, and Skyline were all about lightweight, driver-focused performance, the 3000 GT VR4 went the opposite direction. With all its tech, it was heavy, over 3,700 pounds. That made it more of a high-speed cruiser than a nimble track weapon. And that's where opinions start to split. Some people loved the 3000 GT's brute power and high-tech features. Others thought it was too heavy and complicated. But there's one thing everyone can agree on: the styling was incredible. It had the wide stance, aggressive body lines, pop-up headlights on early models, and that unmistakable 90s Japanese supercar look. And let's not forget its twin brother, the Dodge Stealth RT twin-turbo. Mitsubishi and Chrysler had a partnership in the 90s, and that led to the Stealth, which was basically a rebadged 3000 GT with some styling differences. But while the Stealth was cool, the 3000 GT VR4 was the real star. So why doesn't the VR4 get the same love as other 90s JDM legends? Well, for starters, it was expensive when new. A 1998 model had an MSRP of around $45,000, which was a lot for a Mitsubishi. Then there's the maintenance. The 6G72 twin-turbo V6 is powerful, but it's also complex and expensive to work on. And because Mitsubishi discontinued the car in 1999, aftermarket support isn't as strong as it is for the Supra or RX-7. But here's the thing. If you're looking for a unique, underrated JDM beast, the 3000 GT VR4 is a steal compared to its rivals. Prices are rising, but you can still find clean examples for way less than a Supra or Skyline. And with some mods and tuning, this car can easily push 500 plus horsepower and turn into an absolute monster. A compact coupe that flies under the radar but packs a serious punch. You might not expect it, but once you see what's hiding under the hood, you'll understand. I'm talking about the Mazda MX3. Let's take a look at it. One of the most underrated little coupes to come out of the 90s. The MX3, often overlooked in the sea of more iconic vehicles from that era, remains one of Mazda's finest hidden gems. In a time when compact cars were all about practicality and low cost, Mazda decided to blend the heart of a sports car with the practicality of a small daily driver. The result was a car that was both nimble and quick, yet small enough to fit into any parking spot with ease. Despite its small size, Mazda managed to pack some serious personality under its hood. Now, let's dive into the heart of the MX-3, the engine. The engine lineup of the MX-3 is where things start to get really interesting. The base model came with a 1.6-liter inline-4 engine. Now, this may sound underwhelming, and in many ways it was. The 1.6-liter engine was perfectly adequate for day-to-day driving, but it wasn't exactly what you'd call a thrill to drive. But Mazda wasn't just stopping there. They had bigger plans for those who wanted more performance. Enter the MX3 GS model. This was the high-performance version of the car, and it came with a 1.8-liter V6 engine. Now, this was the real showstopper. The 1.8-liter V6 in the GS model was unique for one big reason. It was the smallest production V6 engine in the world at the time, just 1.8 liters. Yet Mazda managed to make it sing with a red line of 7,000 RPM and a fuel cutoff at 7,800 RPM. The V6 engine produced 130 horsepower and 115 foot-pounds of torque, which may not sound like much in the grand scheme of things. But remember, the MX-3 was a very small, light car. With that much power in such a lightweight chassis, the car had a real sense of urgency when you hit the gas. To put it into perspective, the 0 to 60 time for the US version of the MX-3 GS was about 8.4 seconds. Sure, it wasn't setting any world records and was slower than some family sedans, but it was fast enough to put a big grin on your face. If you pushed it hard, you could get the quarter-mile time down to 16.4 seconds. Again, not blistering speeds, but for a car this size, it was more than enough to be fun. On top of that, the MX-3 GS had a top speed of 202 kilometers per hour for the European model, which was a solid figure for a car of its size and class. But there was more to this engine than just power. Mazda also fitted the V6 with their variable resonance induction system. This was a sophisticated intake system that adjusted itself at different RPMs to optimize power delivery. The VRIS system helped the V6 engine pull better at higher revs and made the car feel a lot more lively when you pushed it to its limits, combining decent power with the joy of revving it to the red line and hearing that little V6 scream. Handling-wise, the MX-3 was equally impressive. It wasn't about straight-line speed, and this little coupe was built to handle curves and corners with ease. But for all its potential, the MX-3 didn't achieve the commercial success Mazda had hoped for. It was overshadowed by its bigger, more well-known sibling, the MX-5 Miata. While the Miata stole the spotlight with its accessible sports car experience, the MX-3 flew under the radar. After only one generation, Mazda pulled the plug on the MX-3, leaving it as a forgotten relic of the 90s car world. It's a shame, really, because it was a fantastic car with a lot of untapped potential. Next, a car that might not turn heads at first, but the moment you hit the throttle, it's a different story. The Toyota AE111, with its high-revving motor that brings a raw, visceral driving experience. Let's look deeper. If you're a JDM fan, you probably know about its older sibling, the AE86, but this one's the underrated gem that deserves way more attention. Stick around because we're diving deep into what makes the AE111 a forgotten masterpiece. The AE111 was the seventh and final generation of the Sprinter, Trueno, and Corolla 11. Introduced in 1995, it marked the end of an era, not just for the Trueno nameplate, but for Toyota's sport compact coupes in general. The AE111 was produced in two main phases: the Zenki, which was the pre-facelift version from 1995 to 1997, and the Kuki, the facelifted version from 1997 to 2000. The changes between these two phases were subtle, but they were significant enough to improve the car's handling and performance. The FZ trim served as the entry-level model, equipped with a 1.5-liter 5 AFE engine that produced 100 horsepower. Nothing too exciting, but it did the job for those looking for an everyday commuter. The XZ trim offered a slight upgrade, featuring a 1.6-liter 4AFE engine, which gave the car a bit more pep, though still not mind-blowing. The real highlights, however, came in the form of the BZ trims: BZV, BZG, and BZR. These trims came with the legendary 1.6-liter 20-valve 4AGE blacktop engine. This engine was a significant step up from the older 4AGE units found in earlier Toyota models. The blacktop was one of Toyota's best naturally aspirated inline-4 engines, delivering an impressive 165 horsepower, a level of performance that made the AE111 feel far sportier than it really was. So what made the 4AGE blacktop so special? Toyota ditched the old mass airflow sensor in favor of a manifold absolute pressure or MAP sensor. This allowed for more precise tuning and performance gains, while the engine internals were revised to make it more durable and capable of handling high revs. The blacktop also featured a black valve cover, which gave it its nickname, and the engine could rev all the way up to 8,000 RPM, making it one of the highest revving engines in its class. Another aspect that set the AE111 apart from other cars in its class was the sound of the engine. The individual throttle bodies gave the 4AGE blacktop a distinctive, high-pitched induction noise that was incredibly satisfying to hear, particularly as the revs climbed toward the red line. It was a sound that made you want to push the engine even further, which is exactly what a true performance car should do: encourage you to enjoy every second behind the wheel. Finally, a car that pushed the boundaries of performance and style in its time. With its sleek lines and power-packed engine, this one's ready to leave its mark. The Nissan 300 ZX-C31, also known as the Fairlady Z. This car represents a significant departure from Nissan's previous sports car lineup and marks a pivotal moment in their performance car legacy. Produced from 1984 to 1989, the Z31 brought forward several groundbreaking features that were ahead of their time, helping establish the 300 ZX nameplate as a classic in the JDM scene. Today, you can still find one at an affordable price, making it a great option for those looking for an affordable classic sports car. When it comes to performance, the Z31 offered two main engine options: the naturally aspirated VG30E and the turbocharged VG30ET. The base VG30E engine was a 3.0-liter V6 that initially produced 160 horsepower, with a slight increase to 165 horsepower in 1988. While these figures might seem modest by today's standards, they provided ample power for the time, delivering an enjoyable driving experience. The real excitement came with the turbocharged VG30ET engine. This engine initially produced 200 horsepower, with a boost to 205 horsepower in mid-1987, thanks to an upgraded Garrett T25 turbocharger. In terms of acceleration, the turbocharged Z31 was impressive, able to hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6.5 seconds, a competitive time for the mid-80s. While it may not compare to modern performance standards, the Z31 was a legitimate sports car in its heyday and could compete with much more expensive rivals from both Europe and America. The turbo models also featured advanced suspension systems, including electronically adjustable shocks that allowed drivers to switch between soft, normal, and firm settings. This was a feature ahead of its time and made the Z31 a standout in terms of comfort and handling. When considering a classic car like the Z31, maintenance is key to keeping it running smoothly. The VG30 engine is relatively reliable, and many owners report that these engines can last well over 200,000 miles. One major maintenance issue to watch out for is the timing belt. Since the VG30 is an interference engine, the timing belt needs to be replaced every 60,000 miles to avoid potentially catastrophic engine damage. Another common issue with the Z31 is rust, especially in certain regions where rust prevention wasn't as advanced as it is today. Key areas to check for rust include under the spare tire, above the muffler, and under the toolkit. Be prepared to spend some time and money on rust repairs if you're buying one. The Z31's transmission and differential are also important considerations when purchasing one. The base NA models came with a 5-speed manual transmission, which is generally reliable but not particularly refined. The turbo models, particularly from 1984 to 1986, were equipped with the Borg-Warner T5 transmission, which is known to be somewhat fragile. If you're planning to drive your Z31 aggressively, it's a good idea to look for a later turbo model, as these feature stronger transmissions.